A man named Eric took his son deer hunting on a piece of private property where they had full permission to be. But up ahead was something they weren't expecting to encounter. As they walked through the woods, they noticed another hunter already on the land.
Hey man, who are you?
Who the hell are y'all?
Eric, and this is my son. We're about to go down here and hunt. Do you have permission to hunt here?
Yep.
From who?
Landowner.
Who's the landowner?
He's up by the road, I think.
The landowner.
Yes, that was his name.
So gave you permission?
Yep.
He's told me, last time I talked to him, he said he's not going to give any permission to anyone other than me and my son.
I guess he told you wrong.
Okay, then I'll call him.
Hey, why are you filming me?
He can film whoever he wants. Hey, stay back, man, because we don't know you. You don't know us. We're just trying to go to our stand and hunt and have a peaceful day. Keep them.
The stranger insisted that he also had permission from the property owner, but Eric wasn't convinced. To clear things up, he called the landowner directly. And plain as day, the owner had no idea who the man was, and he definitely did not have permission to be there. While Eric was still on the phone, the stranger's attitude began to change.
Hey, have you given permission to this somebody come out here and hunt besides me and my son? Just a guy in a camo jacket, blue jeans, boots, got a gun. He's not even wearing orange. Okay, man. You do not have permission to hunt here. Who? Do you live around here?
I'm going to my truck.
Where's your
I don't
truck?
trust you.
Well, we dang sure don't trust you because you're not allowed to hunt here.
I just wanted to have a day of deer hunting.
And besides, the road's not even that way. How did you get into this property?
The damn road is over there.
I don't know what road you're talking about.
I'm getting away from y'all.
You're acting like we're the issue, dude. You're hunting property where you're not supposed to be. You're trespassing.
Y'all are shit.
What started as confidence quickly turned into nervousness, then frustration, then outright aggression. At one point, the man even started jostling with his rifle. Eric stood his ground and made it clear that the man was trespassing and hunting illegally on private property. Rather than admitting it, the stranger tried to shift the blame, acting as though Eric and his son were somehow the problem. He refused to explain how he gained access to the land and eventually started backing away from the confrontation. I gotta say, even though this didn't have a creature or something paranormal in it, I mean, tempers were starting to flare. That's never good with two guys that aren't willing to back down that have guns in their hands. Anyhow, would you have done the same thing? Would you have confronted him?
Wow. Wow, even the line might be eaten.
Yes.
Wow. Why? He made it. Oh, yeah, manyaga. Why? In front of all these people, this crocodile is very lucky. He must be very lucky.
वो तभी अपनी जान बचा के भागी है।
इसको भी खा जाते नहीं तो।
और क्या बची तो भाग के तो आई है वो।
इस मारा इसने।
हाँ।
Wait, video. Ay.
On January 21st of 2024, YouTuber Chris Baird set out on another paranormal investigation, but this trip would end much differently than he expected. Known for exploring haunted locations, abandoned properties, and overall creepy places, Chris headed to Pocomoke Forest, an area often described as one of the most haunted forests in America. His destination was an abandoned farmhouse located on property owned by fellow YouTuber CJ Faison. Alone and determined to spend the night there, Chris arrived as darkness settled over the woods. After setting up camp, he began exploring the old farmhouse. Moving through the building, he attempted to communicate with any spirits that might still linger there.
Did you tell me that? Did you make a noise? You enjoy me being here with you? So, I don't know. Just very uncomfortable, you know? Ooh! Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut the actual fuck up. Get the fuck out of here. We just moved that door. What the actual just happened? Yo, there's nothing going on here. There's no tomfoolery. I don't understand how that just happened. My mind playing tricks on me? What the f was that? That was so weird.
This went on for a while, but nothing happened. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, a door slammed shut. The problem was, Chris had left it open.
I cannot explain that. Who is upstairs? Hello? I pray that was outside. I literally pray that was outside. Bro, what the hell is going on in the house right now? I'll be all alone in my tent, so feel free to come bother me tonight. Keep me company. Yeah, I don't know if I can do this all night, guys. This is wild.
Chris said the atmosphere immediately changed. Trying to stay calm, he continued investigating and headed upstairs towards the area where he believed the noise had come from. That's when things got worse.
What the f? What the f? Yo, this place. Yeah, I'm not stopping. I'm out of here. This place, dude. This place.
A scream suddenly cuts through the silence. I mean, this is loud enough to send him running from the house. He hightails it, retreats to his tent, hoping the worst is behind him. But sleep doesn't come easily.
Sorry, guys. Get it back on for a sec. Your boy is not doing this again. Zip, damn it.
Strange sounds continue through the night, keeping him on edge.
Do a podcast, but if anything happens, I'll record in a little bit when I go to bed. And yeah. Is that just my imagination? Or did something just happen over there? Did you guys hear that? Is there like someone like almost like poked the front of the tent? Alright, my heart rate just went from a nice 69 beats per minute to 148. What the f, guys? This is gonna be a long night. I thought everything was fine, but no. Every time I think it's good.
Eventually, exhaustion wins out. For a little while.
Hello? What the fuck was that? Hello? What the? My light died. I just heard the weirdest noise. I don't know. Something woke me up.
Later, he wakes up again. This time to noises coming from just outside the tent. The kind of sounds that immediately make you feel like you are not alone.
Car alarm? Oh. What was that? Oh.
Despite every instinct telling him otherwise, Chris steps outside to investigate. But whatever was making the noise never clearly reveals itself.
sound like someone's car, but there's no one here. Like, I don't see any camera notifications. I don't know, guys. I don't actually know. It is almost 6 o'clock. Slept a decent amount tonight, so I think I'm just gonna go home. Just gonna go home, maybe sleep for a couple more hours, and just, I don't know, guys. Like, I mean, I stayed a decent amount. I didn't stay the whole night, but call it a foul, call it whatever you want. I'm gonna pack my shit and go. So, what's that? All right. I'm getting in the car. I'm done. Fucking getting in the car.
At that point, he's had enough. The combination of the farmhouse, the scream, the activity around the tent pushes him to his limits. The combination of the farmhouse, the scream, the activity around the tent pushes him to his limit. I don't know about you guys, but whether you believe in the paranormal or not, I mean, spending a night alone in a forest after hearing all these noises, I mean, yeah, I'm leaving too. I mean, sometimes it's not even what you see that gets you, it's what you can't see. That's the problem. That's where the fear sets in. What say you guys? Stay in the night, trying to figure it out? Are you leaving with the door slammed? Or the scream? I don't think I'm ever even going. So, that's that on that. But drop me a comment if you would stay, or which one of those things would have got you up out of there. It's July 29th, 2022, and two friends are spending the night deep in the Canadian wilderness when an ordinary camping trip takes an unsettling turn. Jason and his friend in Michigan have settled into camp after what had been a quiet evening. The fire is burning low, conversation is winding down. They've just been chilling. As they're preparing to shut it down, the silence breaks. A loud growl echoes from somewhere beyond the edge of camp.
I don't even hear noise if it's moving. Those are good.
Yeah, but that good?
Yep. Like that close. Yep.
No.
Yep.
Jason quickly grabs his camera while both men scan the darkness with the flashlight. They're expecting to see an animal. At absolute worst case, a bear. But hopefully something else just moving through the woods. Instead, they notice a single bright point reflecting back at them. It's just a dot. At first it looks like an eye. But, of course, if it belongs to an animal, where's the second one? Why is there only this single dot moving through the woods, tracing their steps? But as it moves around, what makes this situation stranger is that there are no footsteps, no snapping branches, there's no audible movement at all. They call out to it, but the glowing point continues changing position, appearing, disappearing as it moves through the forest, always visible, never fully revealing what it's attached to. Despite the flashlight beam, neither of them can identify what they're looking at. After the weekend, the footage was later uploaded to the Lost Cryptids Conservatory, where viewers immediately began debating what the pair may have encountered. Yeah, I gotta admit, this would kind of freak me out. The single eye detail is what makes this one super interesting. Of course, most animals would produce two reflecting eyes. I guess unless somehow they got injured. But at the end of the day, the size of this, the way this thing moved around and followed them, wasn't skittish. I don't think we're looking at a normal animal found in the woods. What do you guys think? For this next story, we're heading to Belgium, where a planned visit to an abandoned campsite turns into something far more disturbing than anyone expected. On December 29th, 2023, YouTuber Ciaz and two friends arrive at a forest they tend to explore. The goal is simple: reach an abandoned campsite they had visited before. But as soon as they step out of the car, they hear dogs barking somewhere deep in the woods.
Oh, man.
The sound is distant but noticeable. When they reach the entrance, they spot a tree blocking the path. Attaching to it is a warning that reads, "Private. This is a space of prayer. please respect the area. Nearby, another sign warns visitors about a watchdog. Ciaz mentions he doesn't remember seeing these warnings during this previous visit. Still, they continue. Not long after entering the forest, they hear a strange sound. They describe it as something similar to a door opening somewhere in the distance.
Ja, hoort je het? Die deur, die wint niet. Ik hoor zo...
Nee, dat was een beest.
Zeker?
Ja.
Oh,
Nee.
Waar is dat?
Dat was een deur.
Dat is een deur, hè?
Hallo?
Ik heb de wind ook gaan, ja.
Schijners, ja.
Oh.
Matig op voetstap.
Ik hoor van alles hier. Dit is zo fucking eng. Oh. Maat.
Hallo? Mogen wij hier binnenkomen?
Unsure whether they've wandered onto private land, they decide to circle around and use a different trail instead. Further ahead, they encounter another obstacle, a tree blocked off with red and white tape, this time accompanied by a sign stating, "No access, private area, camera surveillance in operation." Once again, they ignore the warning and continue deeper into the woods. Then, all hell breaks loose.
Not knowing what awaits them.
What the fuck? What the fuck? Oh. Dat is toch niet mijn auto of zo, hè? Hier wordt letterlijk iemand gemarteld in dat bos. Dit is heel fucked. Dat is geen licht, kijk. Dat is geen licht. Dit is heel fucked. Dus... Wat? Kom verder. Stel je voor, dat is mijn auto. What the fuck is dit, kerel? Die zit er ook uit. Ja, als ik kom. Daar. Ik zie ze. Zit daar in een lampje. Zo rechts. Ja, die komt naar hier. Kom naar hier. Kom naar hier. Blijf gewoon hier. Lamp aan of niet? Hallo? 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 What the fuck? What the fuck? Hey!
For a brief moment, a figure becomes visible. A woman dressed in a white robe, holding an axe, and moving quickly toward them. Panic sets in immediately. The three friends scatter into the darkness and lose track of each other among the trees.
What the fuck is dit? What the fuck is dit? Ja, wacht. Hallo? Hallo? Je moet nu naar hier komen. Fuck. Ja, we zitten hier in een bos in Centerlo. We zijn hier in een bos en dat is een verlaten bungalowpark. En ineens komt er een man met een mes of zoiets op ons af. We zijn hier met 3. En ik hoorde ook kloppen. Ik denk dat mijn auto kapot is geslagen. En we zijn vies gelopen. Zijn jurissen. Kom alsjeblieft heel snel.
Eventually, police are called to the area. Not too long afterward, the woman also comes out of the woods.
Ja, is goed. Ja. Ja. Dat is die. Dat is die. Ja, dat is goed.
Mevrouw, het is de laatste keer. Hier blijven.
Maar wat is het?
Je gaat hier blijven.
Ofwel moet ik nemen mijn vrouw mee, ofwel moet ik hier blijven.
Ja, goed. Vanaf nu luisteren naar mij.
Nee, ik ga niet luisteren.
Hé? Beetje respect hebben voor mijn collega, ja?
Dat is geen respect hebben voor mij. Nee, dat gaan we niet doen. Wat? Nee, nee, dat gaan we niet doen. Dat gaan we niet doen. Nee, nee, gedaan. Nu gedaan, ja? Pak die lamp. Pak die lamp. Pak die lamp. Wacht eens. Deze collega die moet laten zien.
According to the account, it reportedly took multiple officers to calm her down before she was taken away for further evaluation. I mean, what is going on here? I need to know more information. Was this near this woman's house? Was she wandering through the woods? Was she hunting them? I mean, this is just crazy. So I almost skipped over this clip when I saw Mandy. And for those of you that don't remember, she lives up in Western Massachusetts. She posted all those videos on TikTok and YouTube about this something, about a creature, a person, someone lurking in her yard. At that time, the ground was covered with snow, so she could see the footprints. They would lead to her door. Sometimes they would just lead into the woods. Like, she had no idea what was going on. A lot of people thought she was actually faking it, myself kind of included. As you know, she started posting a series of security camera clips. Night after night, the same thing kept happening. Strange footprints would appear around her property. Some led to her front door, others circled the house. And at first, nobody could figure out who was leaving them. As she put up more cameras, she was finally provided an answer. A random woman from her neighborhood was repeatedly showing up on Mandy's property in the middle of the night. And like I mentioned, this was not a one-time thing. Over and over again, the stranger would wander through the yard, behaving in ways that were difficult to explain. Sometimes she appeared to be hiding from something. Other times, she could be heard making these weird noises, just wandering aimlessly around the property. I mean, in some clips, she even approached Mandy's door, saying, "Let me in, let me in." After further digging, an explanation came out.
Alright, so she ran up through there, and then she came behind that tree, and she ran this way. It looked like she went either behind that shed with the garage door or between the two sheds, but I'm not 100% sure. I know she ran in this direction. However, it was so far away that I couldn't tell if she actually went behind and into the woods or if she just went down the driveway and onto the road.
According to reports, the woman suffered from a severe form of sleepwalking. For reasons nobody seemed able to explain, she repeatedly traveled from her home directly to Mandy's property while asleep. What the heck? What is that about? Why does she always go there? Like, we need to dive into that. Because as I understand it, Mandy's property is not right next door. Like I mentioned before, some of these steps were even leading into the woods. Like she was cutting through the woods to get to her home. Once she figured out who the woman was, Mandy reportedly asked the family to take steps to address the situation, seek medical help, do something. Like, it's not safe for her or Mandy and her family. She's contacted the police multiple times too. But according to Mandy, the incidents continue. I say this all the time, but I actually think this is creepier because we know that it's a real person. Someone wandering around your property in the middle of the night with no memory of doing it. I mean, think about it. What are you doing if you wake up and find fresh footprints just circling your house every morning, up on your steps? You look on your Ring camera, some lady saying, "Let me in, let me in." You guys let me know if you remember this series of videos that Mandy was doing. You know, part of me thought she might be doing this just for her 5 minutes of fame, but come to find out, it's been a lady down the road all this time. That's just unbelievable. This next story is crazy. It comes from the YouTube channel Exposing the Strange. Go check his channel out, watch all the videos, like, subscribe. I mean, he's got some super cool stuff going on over there. I've watched a ton of his videos. Go check him out, Exposing the Strange. I'll link his channel in the description.
Thank you for joining us. Today we are going to speak with Carrie and Greg. They have had encounters with dogmen on their property since 2010, and they are still having encounters today. They were even in Linda Godfrey's book, Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America. Not only has Carrie seen the dogman on her property, but she also has photos of prints in the snow in her yard, as well as a horrifying picture of the dogman on the roof of her chicken coop looking straight down at her husband Greg, which was taken from a trail cam. So stay tuned. This is a horrifying story, but it's not over yet. And this is an exclusive interview only here on Exposing the Strange.
If you have an encounter story that you would like to share regarding cryptids, UFOs, or the paranormal, contact us through our website.
It was back in around March of 2010, and we're just a normal family, and my son was living with us at the time, and he came to me. He was a college student, and he lived upstairs, and he was telling me about how he had been hearing noises at night. Sometimes he would stay up really late at night while he was studying and working on his papers. And I asked him about the noises, and he said that it was like grunting and growling and a lot of brush moving and stuff like that. And he could hear it from his window up in his bedroom. And I just kind of, I don't know, shrugged it off a little bit, thinking, well, it was a deer, it was raccoons, it was, things that we know. So one of the first encounters that I had was early in the morning. I was getting ready for work, and I heard this sound that sounded like a goose outside, and I thought it was one of our geese, because we raised geese at the time. We had ducks and geese and chickens, and so I went outside to check on them to make sure they were okay, and they were okay. And I had 2 dogs at the time, and they were outside with me, but I noticed that they weren't coming with me while I was walking around the yard, and that seemed kind of funny. And then up in the corner of our yard, I started hearing what I sounded was what sounded like a puppy, like a dog that was hurt. And I remembered seeing signs earlier, like the day before, about all these lost pets and stuff, and so I thought it was just like a wounded dog. So I started walking up into the corner of the yard, and it was a very secluded place. It had a lot of bamboo. I couldn't really see, where I heard that the whimpering was coming from. So I was kind of parting a little bit of the bamboo and saying things like, "Here, puppy, puppy, here, puppy, puppy." And then all of a sudden, it's like the whole feeling just changed. And it was like all the hair stood up on my body and the back of my neck. And so all of a sudden this crashing, whatever was in there started crashing through the bamboo, and I could see the bamboo moving, and it let out this just god-awful growl, snarl kind of thing. And I turned around and I ran, and I didn't think I was going to make it to my house. I thought that whatever it was big enough that I was going to be prey, and my husband was going to find the body when he came home, or maybe not find me at all. And I ran into the house, and I can remember I was so terrified that I literally sat down in the corner of my kitchen, and I was not going to come out. I sobbed. I cried harder than I've ever cried before, because I was just I was terrified. I was scared. The next encounter I had was my son woke me up one night. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and he said that something had gotten one of our chickens. We had a chicken called Lonely Boy, and he free range, so he was out a lot. And so I got up, and we both had our shotguns and everything, and we came outside because we thought it was a raccoon or something that was hurting, our chicken. And we came outside and saw Lonely Boy across the fence in our neighbor's yard, and he was bashing himself across against the fence, trying to get back over to us because it was dark and he couldn't see the fence. And we were trying to figure out how he even got out there, and we couldn't figure out how he got out there. And So I talked my son, I wish I hadn't have done that now, but I talked my son into raising up the fence so that Lonely Boy could come out and he could get back on our side of the fence. So my son did. And I remember my son saying, Mom, you might want to make sure that the shotgun's, pointed that way, And at this point, I thought maybe it was a raccoon or something that got him, or a fox. So he got over to us and he ran behind me. And I remember him, it was very dark, but we had our flashlights on. And I remember him looking up at me like, yeah, no, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to help me. So then he ran up underneath the porch. And me and my son looked at each other like, what the heck was that about? And right at that point, probably about 2 feet over my head was all of a sudden this really low growl. I have never heard a growl like that, especially one coming so far over my head. And we just looked at each other, even though we both had shotguns in our hands, and we just ran into the house. And once we got into the house, it was like all hell broke loose out here. Like there were 2 or 3 of them out here. They were howling, they were snarling, we could hear them. And then I realized that we had a problem. We sat down as a family and tried to discuss it and tried to think of how we can figure out what this animal is, because at this point, we weren't sure what it was. Do we have a bear? Is it a coyote? What is it? We were trying to figure it out. And probably, we just thought that it was just an animal that we could describe. That we knew, right?
Yeah, I don't think we had any clue at that point what was going on.
No.
A lot of noise and something not good.
And then it started banging on the side of the house, or they started banging on the side of the house. We would be woken up in the middle of the night, just bam, 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 and usually it was three, bam, bam, bam. So it got to the point where, at first we thought it was neighbors that were messing with us, because we'd only been living here for about 2 years. And then we finally went on the offensive and we took our guns out with us. We were actually, walking around with AR-15s, because we're like, we're not messing around. What is this thing? And I remember, gosh, there must have been a couple dozen times that we did that. And when we would come out, we would hear something, like something would run along the side of the house and run to the back of the yard. We had a wooden fence in the back of the yard that we could literally hear them jump onto the fence, and you could hear the ding of the fence as it was going. We heard them land, and then we heard them running down the driveway of our neighbor's driveway, and we were like, what animal could do something like that? It's almost like a human being, but I don't know of any human being that runs that fast and covers that much ground within, we're talking about seconds from the time we walked out until the time they jumped over the fences. It was almost like they were toying with us.
Yeah, well, there's definitely more than one, because they couldn't be that fast to go from one side of the yard to the other. I don't think it would be possible. They're definitely pretty fast.
So there was another instance that really helped solidify, and that was my son would come home at work from class. He would take night classes, so sometimes he would come home at like 10 o'clock, and he would always park down below the driveway, because we always left in the morning and he didn't want to block us. So he would park down that way and then he would walk up. So being a mom, I used to wait for him to come home. And I remember one night hearing him come home, and I heard him walk by the bedroom window, because my bedroom window was right next to the driveway. And I heard him walk by the bedroom window, and then about 30 seconds later, he walked back down. And I was like, oh no, we must have locked the door and he's going to get his key, or he's going in through the basement, right? So I got up real quick, because I was going to holler at him, hey, I'm home, I'm up, so you can come in. And I was going to let him in the back door. And when I got into the kitchen, he was standing in the kitchen petting the dogs. And I just stood there looking at him, and he's like, Mom, what's wrong? I was like, how are you here just 2 seconds never mind. So I went back to bed and I couldn't figure it out. And it was after the Lonely Boy thing that, you know, we started talking about stuff. So I started talking to him about it. And I told him what I had heard. And that kind of really freaked me out and freaked him out, because obviously something had been walking behind him, something that was bipedal. I never really paid attention to that word until we started researching this. And, you know, walking on two legs, and walked back down the driveway after he was safely in the house. So that's when I was like, hey, we really have something here. So I went to Greg and tried to tell Greg about it, and he didn't really.
Yeah, I wasn't really a believer. I was like, yeah, it's probably a raccoon.
Yeah, we kept coming back to the raccoon thing, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
And then it was probably, I would say, I don't know, it was about 6 months later. We had gotten a trail cam. I decided, you know what, I need proof. I need proof of what this thing is, because it's driving us nuts. It's banging on the house. It's keeping us up. It's basically harassing us, right? And we were all on edge, and you know, as a family, we were kind of, you know, almost fighting with each other about this thing, and not knowing what it was. So I said, I'm getting a trail cam. So I started setting the trail cam up around the yard. And what I would do was I would set it up, and then I would come home from work after making dinner and everything, and I would check out any pictures that we had. So this one time I was sitting there, usually it was like pictures of birds and, you know, things like that. And then I started getting some really weird pictures. Like, I got a picture of something, you couldn't really tell what it was, but in the background you could tell that there was sky, but it almost looked like something that ran by the camera really fast, and it had a hairy back. And when I saw that, I was like, well, what do we have around here that's as taller than me that has a hairy back, you know? And then the next couple days, I got a pair of pictures that we used to have chickens in a chicken coop to the back of our property, and we'd have to go out and put them up at night. We let them free range once we got home and let them out, and then we'd go and put them up. Well, when we put them up, we'd have to go and we'd have to put some bricks in front of their doors so that, you know, critters couldn't get to them. And so I had the trail camera on that kind of, I don't know why I had it pointed that way. I'd just randomly been pointing it in different directions. But the first picture I had, I almost deleted because I didn't really know it was really anything. And it showed like these two, I want to say eyes. There were two eyes up on top. And my husband was coming and putting the chickens up. So he was like walking next to it. And so he put the chickens up. And then the next picture was really what caught my eye, because it made me realize, hey, we've got something here. And you could tell that when he walked away, so you can see him in the picture, you can see him walking away from where he was just at, and whatever it was, the eyes that were watching him from on top of the chicken coop, all of a sudden had lifted their heads up like they were watching him walk away. So the first picture is of the creature or whatever it is kind of hunkering down, like, oh no, here he comes. And then the next one was it picking up its head and watching him walk away. And that really scared me, because he was literally within inches of this thing. So I tried to get him to look at the pictures, and at first he wouldn't look at it. He didn't want to hear anything about it, you know. So my daughter was there, and she was looking at the pictures, and she finally said, hey, you really need to come and see these pictures, because there's something there. And if you lighten up the picture a little bit, you could see that it's a big canine type head. And there was nothing behind the chicken coop that anything could stand on. There was nothing for it to lean against. Whatever was there was a lot bigger than my husband, and he was within inches of it. So you want to tell him how you thought about it?
Well, yeah, I fought it off for a while. They were saying, oh, it's this and that. And I said, no, it's definitely a raccoon or something, because you could kind of see the eyes on top of the roof and see me in the picture. So when I looked at the second one and took a closer look, I think she did lighten it up a little bit. And then I was like, oh boy, I don't know what that is. Because you could see it actually, his eyes were positioned here, and then in the second photo, it moved. And it was like looking looking at me.
And you could see the snout, and you could see how it was glaring towards where he was going.
It was pretty obvious whatever it was watching me. So I was pretty on board at that point. Something was running around, making noise.
Then, unbeknownst to me, my son had been talking to the late, great Linda Godfrey. And so he finally came to me and he was talking about, I think that we have this thing called the Dogman. And I had never heard of the Dogman. I grew up in Michigan. I had never heard of the Dogman, So I was just like, what is that? No, that's not what it is. We can still explain it, Maybe a coyote got up there. I don't know. So I finally started doing research on it. We still had the bangings. We still had stuff going on. I would catch the glimpse of something and then it was gone. Just really weird things that were going on. Things were missing in the yard, like the dog toys came up missing, but then the next day they would be back. And it was just weird little things like, who's messing with us? Who's doing this? And I finally broke down and called Linda Godfrey, and I was talking to her about it. And she told me, she said, you have a Dogman. This is what they do. This is how they terrorize people. I was afraid to go out of my house. I mean, to this day, I'm afraid to go out at night. When I'm home alone, I do not go out. I don't even take the dogs out. If they bark, I'm jumpy. If we hear a knock or anything, I'm really jumpy. It's almost like, I don't know, PTSD or something. But, I'm really afraid, because with seeing these things and the encounters that we've had, they're just so fast. And actually, I had described to Linda how we'd walked out and we'd walked in like a tripod, formation around the yard. And she said, stop doing that. That's what they want you to do. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I must have talked to her like 8 times. And she was going to come out, but she was sick at that time, so she couldn't come out. And she said that they're playing with you. They want to see these reactions with you. It's, to me, it was like cryptid ding dong ditch, they're knocking on the door and then running away. And when I realized that, and then she said something that I will never forget, because I almost dropped the phone, and I almost told him for the 10th time that we're moving, we're getting out of here. She said, the guns won't do you any good. And I said, what do you mean? They sure do make me feel good when I'm walking around the yard. And she said, if they wanted to kill you, they would have done it by now. And then I realized she was right. They were so fast, they were so quick, they were so quiet. They could be right next to me and I wouldn't even know they were there. So then we started like non-reacting. If the banging was happening on the house, we no longer went running around like chickens with our heads cut off. And eventually that part of it kind of died away. But then we had the other encounters as well. That winter, again, I was home alone. And I remember I was doing work, and it was about 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I was sitting at the kitchen table, and we had a deck then. We've since torn out our deck, but anyway. And I was sitting at the kitchen table, and I heard this thump. This like something jumping off the roof onto the deck, which was very commonplace. They used to get on our roof and make all kinds of noise and stuff like that. So I was kind of used to that, but I was home alone, so I got scared. And my son was away in college. And so I called him. I called him on the phone, and I was telling him about, what I'd heard. And he's like, well, don't go outside, Mom. Don't go by the windows. You know what to do. Don't let them bother you. They're just messing with you. So I was standing next to the kitchen window looking out by our sink. And that night I remember very distinctly, we had just had a snowfall. So it was beautiful out. And I don't know whether it was a full moon, but if it wasn't, it was very clear. It was almost like daylight. I could see daylight. And I could see into the neighbor's drive. And as I'm talking to my son, I'm like watching something that I thought was a man, and it was running back and forth in the driveway. But the way it was running, it was like it was reaching down and trying to catch something, like something was running from it. And so I was sitting there, and I remember I kept saying, what is that? What is that? And I'd forgotten that I was talking to my son on the phone until I heard, Mom, what's going on? And I said, oh, I'm really sorry. So I explained to him what was happening. I said, it's running back and forth, and I must have watched it and talked to him for over 20 minutes. And you would have thought that I would have, since I had my cell phone in my hand, would have started a video or something, but for some reason my mind didn't even go there. I was like just watching this thing, like, what is that? And I could tell pretty early on that it wasn't a man, because it was just running too weird, and it was too fast. I mean, it was going from one end of the driveway to where I could see it in the other within a second. I mean, I've never seen anybody run that fast. And at times it seemed like it had dropped down on all fours, and then it popped back up. And so my son's like, Mom, don't go outside, don't go outside. So finally it went away. And so I went to bed, and it was probably, I think it was about midnight. But I told myself, the next day was, I think it was a Saturday, and I had the day off. And I told myself, you know, I was praying, please don't let it snow, because whatever was out there, I know there's going to be prints if it just doesn't snow over the prints. So I went out first thing in the morning. I left the dogs in the house, and I went into the neighbor's, property, and I found prints, and I found a lot of prints. I wish I knew what I knew now back then, because I would have tried to probably cast some of it, but I did take pictures, and the only thing I knew to judge the size of it was using my hand. So I put my hand down next to these prints, and those prints, they were like this big. They were huge. And then I had a black lab that was like 70 pounds. So I came back and found his prints in the yard and took pictures of his prints to kind of compare it to, like, this is a 70-pound lab that has a footprint like this, and what is this thing, But that kind of, right then and there, I knew, yes, we have a Dogman. I've seen it. And that pretty much solidified what we had.
Liberty's our black German Shepherd. She's a German Shepherd. She's pretty sensitive and to all the happenings. So we always kind of get a feel if there's something happening by her. But one night, I don't know how long, maybe a year-ish. Anyway, so she wanted to go outside, so I let her out the back door, and she goes up the yard, and so I'm about 15 feet out of the house, and she comes tearing back down and zips by me and runs in the house. And so I look back, and then as I look up where she came from, I see something. And I'm saying, oh man, I can see the shape of it, and it was gray, and it was tall, but I couldn't get any distinct features, but I thought real quick, gosh, should I go get my gun? And as I did that, it kind of like moved, like I could barely see it, and like it went to all fours and then was gone. This was in like split seconds, because the dog went by, I looked up, saw it, and then thought for a second, and I thought I heard a little bit of noise, but so I was standing there just like scratching my head, and so I go back inside, and Carrie sees me, and she goes, what? I said, I don't know. She goes, well, what do you mean? And so I tried to explain it. She goes, well, what did you see? And I said, not really sure. I know it was big and tall and fast, but it was like you could kind of make it out. It almost seemed like once it noticed me noticing it was gone. Like it didn't expect me to actually be able to see it. But yeah, I didn't really know how to explain it to Carrie, and she says, well, that's pretty much, so I don't know. I know they're extremely fast, because it was gone in a blink. So
I was very excited about him having that encounter, because now I wasn't in a place all by myself. It was like almost a aha moment for him. So I think that was the beginning of when he really started to realize that, hey, we've got something that's kind of coming around, and I don't know, it was just
yeah,
scary.
Can't really be
Scary,
a
very
naysayer
scary.
too much longer after that, because that was pretty clear it wasn't our neighbor standing up there.
Yeah, we actually had, me and Greg and Drew, my son, we actually had conversations about who the werewolf was in the neighborhood. You know, we couldn't figure it, you know. And then again, my son and I were doing all kinds of research and hearing all these other things that, you know, similar to what we were going on. So that helped me a little bit, because I really thought I was losing my mind. You know, it was just very scary. And for the longest time, over 10 years really, other than some close friends, we really didn't talk about it. We didn't, you know, want people to think we were those people that, you know, that had a screw loose or anything. So it's just probably within the last 5 years that we've come out with telling our stories. And we've got a lot of them. All right, so I'm gonna show you my Jeep. I'll show you the first print that I ever noticed, and it's right over here. It's right there. And if you see, you can't rub it off. I've waxed it. I've put all kinds of cleaning supplies on there. You can see where the palm is. You can see it's a whole lot bigger than my hand, or a whole lot smaller than my hand. You can see there's 5 digits. And then the palm. So that was the first one I saw. So there is it's kind of, it's better if it's cloudy a little bit, because it's kind of bright. So I'll put my shadow here, so if you can see this, there's actually 2 prints here that are kind of overlaid onto themselves that I noticed. So there's these, and again, they won't come off no matter what I do. But it's like you can see my fingerprints leave markings, but then I can wipe them off. These ones, I can't wipe off. They will not wipe off. So when I first noticed them, I noticed that they were real greasy, and I tried, you know, wiping stuff off, and it was like a real thick kind of grease. So I don't know what they have on their hands, but it doesn't do well with my paint on my Jeep or the plastic. But then here's a bunch of them here.
Oh yeah.
And you can see the handprint, and then I'm going to open the door when you get there's smudge marks here, and that's from them. This one's this year's, because that wasn't here. So I think that is actually a fingerprint. I had a friend who was a police officer who was going to come out and fingerprint and see, you know, with his fingerprint kit, but then he never made it out. So we did find another encounter in our town near, it was called Silver Creek. And when I encountered that, I started thinking about how they would move. And how because we're I know we're rural, but we have close neighbors. So to think about like anything like a Dogman or a Bigfoot being so close to such a community, to me just didn't make any sense, because you know, aren't those things supposed to be out in like the Rockies and things like that? And here we are in, you know, a very rural area. So we started actually hiking back into the back of our property. At one point I did find some footprints, and I did cast them, but then I broke the cast, so I was new at that. So, but you know, I think that they use a lot of the trees. I think they use, you know, the trees for camouflage. Sometimes we've had encounters during the day, but mostly it's during dusk. It's either dusk or it's late at night. I just had that one encounter early in the morning that I had in the beginning, but after that, And that one, I think with looking back, I think that it was trying to get my dogs thinking that it was an animal that was hurt and trying to lure them away so it could eat them. Honestly, that's what I think it was. But, you know, I did research on the limestone caves that we have here. And, you know, I know a lot of people with the Silver Creek sightings, you know, some of their comments online were like, oh, there's no place for them to hide. We don't have mountains. We don't have this. We have a lot of caves. And the limestone caves are all, you know, closed down for some reason. Nobody wants to talk about it. You know, so that was something that I started delving into. And what I found was the more I wanted to talk to people about it, the more people shut up and wouldn't talk to me. They didn't want to talk about those caves. So I think there might be something there, but for the most part, you know, I think they stay to the wood lines. I think that they might travel the streams and rivers that we have here. They don't leave a whole lot of footprints from what we've seen. We've seen tracks in the snow in our yard, and I've got pictures of them that are over 3 or 4 feet long, where my son and Greg have been walking next to them, and it's almost 2 whole strides of theirs to the one, you know, but that's very few and far between. I don't know if now, since they know that we know about them and nothing has happened, maybe they feel that we're not a threat to them. But as far as where they come from, I don't know. I know that they come during certain times, usually from April through May, we see them, and then again in the fall. So where they go during the summertime, I don't know. Because we generally don't have encounters in the middle of the summer. We did have a couple encounters in Hocking Hills, though, which was very weird because we had gotten a camper in Hocking Hills so that we could get away from these things. And then we had 2 encounters there. So, you know, what's up with that? You know, I've heard from doing the research that they talk to each other and they communicate with each other, and they were like, you know, maybe the ones in Hocking Hill were like, oh, that's Carrie and Greg, let's just kind of say hi. I don't know. But I do know in the beginning it was really scary. You know, now it's still scary, but we've kind of learned to live with it, if that makes sense.
Stay tuned for more exclusive content right here on Exposing the Strange.